We're going to talk about slope-intercept form first. So I want you to write this a little, not super big, but on the bottom of that page down there. Okay? So yesterday we talked about a couple of things. We talked about K, and we said K is rise over run. K is your change in Y over your change in X, right? Okay? Well, I'm going to tell you today that M is also K. Sorry. I hate to break the world, but K is also your change in Y over change in X. It is also your rise over run. It is also your unit rate.
Why is there so many?
I don't know. These math people, they came up with all these words for the same thing, and I don't understand why they just didn't name it M in the beginning, but they didn't. So we're going to keep on going with that. Okay, so unit rate, we're going to say constant of proportionality. Okay? And then we're going to say its rate of change. And whatever else we come across that I say, oh, the big thing that we really need, it is slope. Okay? So, it is all those things. Crazy, huh? Okay? So, this is a variable that represents your whatever point lies on the x-axis. So, this belongs to this, right? And the y really belongs to that. Okay? So, those are where those points come from. Okay. So, B is our last thing. It is our y-intercept. Who said that? So, great. I'm so glad you knew this word. So, this is our y-intercept. So, I'm going to kind of describe our y-intercept. So, if I have a graph and my line crosses on the y-axis, this is our y-axis, our x-axis, this point right here is our y-intercept. Does that make sense? It's where it crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to define that. I'm going to say where it crosses the y-axis.
This is so confusing.
Okay, so all this information is going to come together, but I just kind of wanted you to give you the ideas of all of the words, okay? So in just a second, we'll roll over to the first page of your notes. So flip back over to the first page when you're done writing. Okay.
Where it crosses the
Okay. So looking at number 1. A linear relationship is an equation whose graph is a line. So linear means a straight line. One way to graph a linear equation is to make a table of ordered pairs. So, for example, I gave you a lot of information here, and we're going to show you how to do it. So they gave us this equation right here, y equals 3x plus 2. And I should have deleted more out of the table, but I didn't, but we'll go with it for this time. So this first one, you're going to plug in this number, or this, whatever falls in the x spot, to this equation, and it's going to spit out that number, okay? And this number and the x and the y combined together make that point, okay? So let's try it on the first one. So I'm going to 3, and then I'm going to plug in -1 for x. I'm going to add 2 to it. So 3 times -1 plus 2 equals this -1. Okay, they already have the answer there. That's kind of what's the problem, okay? It's not there? Is yours not there? Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Okay, so the point would be -1, -1. So our x and y would be -1, -1. So your -1 from here, your -1 from there, and that makes your point. Okay, so look at the second one. It would be 3 times 0 plus 2. Is 2. Okay, So our point is 0, 2. There we go. Okay, our next one is 3 times 1 plus 2. And our point is 1 and 5. Okay, so our last point is 3 times 2 plus 2. And our point is 2, 8. So I would then come over here and graph these points. So my first point would be negative 1, 1, which is right there. This one happens to already be graphed for us. Okay? Our second point is 0, 2. Our third point is 1, 5. And our last point is 2, 8. So once I graph that, it would go a straight line through it, and it would make that line. Okay, let's look at the second graph. So right here we have an equation, y equals x minus 2. So our first number is negative 1, so I'm going to plug in negative 1 minus 2. Every time I'm plugging in whatever the number they give me in for x in the equation. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. Okay, so our point is negative 1, negative 3. Okay. The second point would be 0 minus 2. So it would be negative 2. And our point would be 0, negative 2. And then this point would be 1 minus 2. So negative 1. So our point would be 1, negative 1. Okay, and then we have 2 minus 2. We would get 0, so our point would be 2, 0. Do you see it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we take these points from the table and we come down and graph it. Our first one would be negative 1, negative 3. And then that would be 1. And then our next point would be 0, negative 2. Okay, so our next point is 1, negative 1. And then 2, 0. Okay. Okay, number 2. So it's a little bit different, but we're still going to stick with it. So this first one's confusing, but after that I think it clears up pretty good. So even though there's a negative sign right there, we still use it. So I still put a negative and then a negative 1 inside because there's a negative sign already. So that makes it a negative, right? Negative, negative makes it a what? Positive. So that's going to be a positive 1. So our point is negative 1, 1. Okay, the next point, we're going to do negative and then put the 0. Well, is there a negative 0? No, 0 is just 0. So our point is 0, 0. Okay, and then we have negative 1. So it's really going to be negative 1. So our point here is 1, negative 1. And then our last one is negative 2. So our point is negative 2, and it's 2, negative 2. Well, because negative 1 times 2. Pretty much. When that negative there, it's making it the opposite. Okay, so we're going to graph these points. So I'm going to graph negative 1, 1. Negative 1, 1. 0, 0. 1, negative 1. 2, negative 2. And then I'm going to connect my points. Okay? Okay, so this is our last one right here. This says graph each linear equation. Well, it didn't give us a table, so I'm going to make my own table. I'm going to say x and y, and I'm going to use those same numbers, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. And then I'm going to plug in my equation, x minus 5. So my first point would be -1 minus 5, which equals -6. And then 0 minus 5, -5. And then 1 minus 5, which would be -4. And 2 minus 5 is -3. So here is my points. I have a point -1, -6, 0, -5, 1, -4, and 2, -3. And I'm going to place these onto my my graph. So I'm going to say -1, -6. And note that these, look at these numbers, they skip. -4, -6, -8, 2, 4, 6, 8 on the top. So 0, -5, 1, -4, 2, -3. And then I draw a straight line. Make your own chart for number 4 and attempt number 4 on your own.